Hi, welcome to another lesson in our series on diversity, continuity and change. Last week, we looked at the different kinds of fossils that exist. Today, we're going to look at how fossils are formed. Remember last week that we said the most compelling evidence for evolution lies in the existence of fossils, and paleontologists are the people who study fossils. So how are fossils formed? Well, it could be that you are living in your little house on top of a fossil and you don't have any idea about that at all because the fossil is buried right underneath the soil very, very deeply. But it could be that a landslide or building a road causes part of a hillside to be cut away and a fossil is exposed. So let's look at how a fossil is formed. We're going to take you through the series of steps that must take place in order for the fossil to be formed. First of all, we need to see that the organism needs to die and needs to be buried in that mud in which it lies soon after its death. It's important that the burial in mud happens very soon after death so that predators and scavengers don't come and rip the body apart and take it, all the bones to different places. And once this being buried in sediment, remember sediment is made up of layers of mud or clay. Once it's buried, the microorganisms start to break down or decompose all the soft tissues of the body. And so what we have is the skeleton, the intact skeleton of the organism lying under layers of mud or in clay, and all that we have left are the hard parts, shells and bones, for example, of that organism. Now, over time, and by time, we are talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of years. This is not something that happens very quickly. But over thousands of years, more layers of sediment pile up over the body. So here we can see that the body originally just lay in the mud that was the top or surface layer of mud. In this diagram here, we can see that this organism now has been covered by layers and layers of mud or sediment. And as those layers of mud and sediment are laid down, they compact or squeeze tightly these lower layers. They squeeze all the water out and they compact that sediment into rock. And we know that that kind of rock is called sedimentary rock. Now, over time, the original hard parts of the body, the bones or the shells, can become transformed. They change from being a bony or a shell structure into being a mineralized structure. Minerals from the surrounding rock slowly infiltrate the bones or the shell and change the chemical composition from bone to rock. So what was originally bone or shell is now rock. The hard body parts, now no longer bone but rock, thus become turned into stone as they actually absorb the minerals from the surrounding rock in which they are embedded. Further layers are compacted on top of that sedimentary rock, and so that fossil becomes buried lower and lower in the ground. Now, it can happen for some reason that this sedimentary rock, this layer that was down at the bottom, becomes exposed. Maybe an earthquake shifts the sediments or the strata of rock. There could be a landslide where we possibly had a cliff which fell, the rocks all fell down and exposed a new cliff face, and a little fossil was buried there. Now the fossil would become exposed after all of this rock that had been covering it fell away. Very often road builders discover fossils when they carve away a path through a hillside and they expose the fossils. They see them. A lot of the geologists that are working on the road building immediately are alerted to the fact that they have discovered a fossil, and they call in paleontologists to remove the fossil safely. But it could just be that slow movements of the earth push the fossil up to the surface. And then, due to weathering and erosion, the rock could be eroded away, exposing the fossil, which then paleontologists could find and completely remove very carefully from the existing rock in order to study it further. And that basically is one way that fossils can be made. More after the break.